Stay calm. Let the Stoic mindset bring you inner peace. I used to feel like I was drowning, not in water, but in a sea of emails, notifications, and to-do lists that never seemed to end. Every day felt like a battle against this rising tide of stress and anxiety, and if I'm being honest, I was losing my happiness, my sense of calm. It was completely tied to things I couldn't control. A delayed train, a critical comment from my boss, that constant, nagging pressure to do more, be more, achieve more. I felt so fragile, like one wrong move could shatter my entire day. But then, I stumbled upon a 20-year-old philosophy that didn't just teach me how to swim. It showed me how to calm the seas inside my own mind. It showed me how to find a real, unshakable inner peace, even when a storm was raging around me. That discovery was Stoicism. And before you start picturing old men in togas debating things that don't matter, I need you to know that this isn't some dusty academic theory. It's a practical toolkit for life. It's a set of mental strategies created by people who faced war, disease, political exile, and unbelievable pressure. People like the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the playwright and advisor Seneca, and Epictetus, a man who went from being a slave to a revered teacher. They weren't just thinking about life, they were living it in the toughest circumstances imaginable. They needed something that worked in the real world. I was constantly overwhelmed, letting the chaos of modern life decide how I felt. By using the practical wisdom of Stoicism, I learned how to focus on what I could actually control and finally find a sense of inner peace I genuinely thought was impossible. It wasn't an overnight fix, but a slow, intentional rewiring of how I see the world. So, I want to share the 5 most powerful Stoic mindsets that completely changed my life. These aren't just ideas to think about, they're exercises to practice. These are the principles that took me from constantly reacting to everything around me to living with a sense of calm, deliberate purpose. And I believe they can do the same for you. The dichotomy of control, YT, the foundation of tranquility, the place where it all begins, the absolute bedrock of Stoicism, is an idea called the dichotomy of control. It was most clearly explained by Epictetus, and it's deceptively simple. Some things in life are up to us, and some things aren't. That's it. But really, letting that sink in can change everything. So what's in our control? Our thoughts, our opinions, our choices, our reactions, basically our inner world. And what's not in our control? Well, almost everything else. The weather, the economy, the traffic, what other people think of us, how they behave, and even the final outcome of our best efforts. The Stoics believed that most of our anxiety and frustration comes from one simple mistake. We spend all our energy trying to manage the unmanageable, while we neglect the one area where we have total power, our own mind. I remember this lesson hitting me like a ton of bricks. For years, I was obsessed with getting a promotion at work. It was all I thought about. I worked late, took on extra projects, anything I could think of. But I was a nervous wreck. I'd analyze every word my boss said. I'd lose sleep, wondering if a coworker was getting ahead of me. My peace of mind was completely outsourced to a decision that wasn't even mine to make. So, when I learned about the dichotomy of control, I tried a little experiment. I took out a piece of paper and drew a line down the middle. On the left, under "not in my control," I wrote things like, the final decision on the promotion, what my boss thinks of me, my colleagues' performance. The list got really long. Then, on the right side, under "in my control," I wrote, the quality of my work today, my attitude in meetings, preparing as best I can for my next presentation, how I respond to feedback. Looking at that paper was a revelation. All my emotional energy was being poured into the left column, the column of things I couldn't change. It was a perfect recipe for anxiety. From that day on, I made a conscious shift to focus only on the right column. My goal was no longer get the promotion. It became be the most focused, helpful, and professional person I can be today. The change was immediate. The anxiety didn't just fade, it basically evaporated. By focusing only on my own actions, I felt a sense of calm and power I'd never felt before. I wasn't a victim of my circumstances anymore. I was in charge of my own experience. As Epictetus said, the chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. This isn't about not caring, it's about being smart with your energy. I want you to try this right now. Think of something that's stressing you out, a relationship, a worry about money, your health. Just mentally draw a line. On one side, list everything about it you can't control. On the other, list the very few things you can control: your next action, your attitude, your response. And then, make a deal with yourself to pour all of your energy into your side of the line. You'll feel the weight start to lift. Premeditatio malorum, ATM, the armor against misfortune. This second tool sounds a little dark at first, but it's one of the best ways I know to build resilience. It's called premeditatio malorum, which basically means the premeditation of bad things, or as we might call it, negative visualization. This isn't about being a pessimist. It's a strategic exercise to strip your fears of their power and, at the same time, make you incredibly grateful for what you have right now. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire, did this all the time. He would purposefully imagine losing his money, his status, even his life. He'd sleep on the hard floor and eat stale bread for days. Why would he do that? He was training. He was vaccinating himself against future pain. As he put it, he who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive. When we're afraid of something losing our job, a relationship ending, we tend to push the thought away. We don't even want to go there. But that just lets the fear grow in the dark, where it turns into this huge, undefined monster. This practice asks you to do the opposite. Drag that fear into the light and look at it calmly. I used to have a crippling fear of public speaking. Just thinking about it made my heart pound. I would turn down opportunities and make myself smaller just to avoid it. The fear was this giant shadow in my mind. So, I tried premeditatio malorum. I sat down and asked myself, okay, what is the absolute worst that could happen? I let my mind go there. I get on stage. My mind goes blank. The audience starts to shuffle and cough. Someone laughs. I stumble over my words, turn beet red, and have to walk off stage in shame. Okay, that's the monster. Then I asked the most important question. And then what? Would I survive? Yes. Would my life be over? No. I'd be embarrassed for a bit. It would sting. But I'd go home, wake up the next day, and my life would go on. By calmly walking through the worst-case scenario, I took away its power. It was no longer a terrifying monster. It was just a very unpleasant possibility. It also allowed me to prepare. I practiced more and made backup notes. The fear didn't disappear, but it turned from paralyzing terror into productive energy. As Seneca said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality, and my fear was living proof. There's a beautiful side effect to this practice too: gratitude. When you take a moment to imagine losing something you value, and then you open your eyes and realize it's still there, the appreciation you feel is incredible. It could be your health, your home, or the people you love. By imagining life without them, you learn to hold them a little closer. Try this simple exercise. Just for a minute, think of someone you love. Now, really imagine they were no longer in your life. Feel that absence. After a minute, come back to, right now, to the reality that they are still here. Feel that wave of relief. That's the gift of this practice. It prepares you for the future and deepens your joy in the present. If you're finding these ancient ideas are hitting home in your modern life, take a second to hit the like button. It really helps tell the algorithm that this is a valuable conversation, and it means more people can find their way to this kind of thinking. Amor fati, the art of loving your fate. This next idea is maybe the toughest one, but it's also the most freeing. It's a concept Marcus Aurelius valued deeply, amor fati. It's Latin for a love of one's fate. This goes way beyond just putting up with things. It's not about gritting your teeth and tolerating your life. It's about actively, enthusiastically loving everything that happens, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as if you chose it. The idea is that every single event, no matter how it looks at first, is a chance to practice virtue. It's an opportunity. An obstacle isn't something standing in your way. The obstacle is the way. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." The Stoic mind is that fire. It takes setbacks, frustrations, and even tragedies, and uses them as fuel to become wiser and stronger. This was a hard one for me to accept. My first reaction when things went wrong was always to complain, to feel like a victim, and to think, this shouldn't be happening. A few years back, the company I worked for restructured, and my whole department was eliminated. I was laid off from a job I really liked. My first reaction was just panic and anger. Why me? This is so unfair. I spent weeks just feeling bitter. Then I remembered amor fati. I decided to try and reframe it. What if this wasn't the worst thing to ever happen? What if this was exactly what I needed? Instead of fighting reality, I tried to love it. That shift in perspective changed everything. The layoff was no longer a disaster. It was an opportunity. It was the universe pushing me in a new direction. The severance gave me a little cushion, and all that new free time gave me space to explore things I was always too busy for. I started learning about video editing, something I'd always been curious about. I started reading more. I started writing. That obstacle, that painful thing I didn't choose, became the raw material for a whole new chapter of my life. Without it, this channel wouldn't even exist. That obstacle truly became the way. Epictetus put it like this: "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." This is a radical idea. Instead of wanting the world to bend to our will, we want the world to be exactly as it is. In that alignment with reality, you find a deep and unbreakable peace. To practice this, think of a challenge you're facing right now. Instead of resisting it, try saying this to yourself: "This is what I've been given. This is my material to work with. I won't just endure this. I will use this to become stronger and wiser." See the obstacle not as a roadblock, but as a training partner sent to make you better. Memento mori. M.A. The view from above. Gaining ultimate perspective. You know how our days can just get swallowed up by the small stuff. We get way too upset about being cut off in traffic, a rude comment, or spilling coffee on a shirt. Our ego gets bruised, our plans get messed up, and we lose our peace over things that, in the grand scheme of things, just don't matter. The Stoics had two powerful mental exercises to pull us out of that trap: memento mori and the view from above. Memento mori is Latin for remember you will die. Now, this isn't supposed to be depressing. It's meant to be clarifying. When you keep the reality of your own mortality in mind, your priorities snap into focus. The petty arguments, the need for approval, the fear of what others think, it all just fades. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Thinking about the end of your life helps you stop wasting the time you have on things that aren't important. The view from above is a related practice. It's a visualization that Marcus Aurelius used all the time. He'd imagine himself floating up, looking down on his own body, then his city, his country, and then the entire planet Earth as just a tiny dot in the silent black emptiness of space. From there, he could see all of human history, empires rising and falling, all happening on this tiny stage. I use this anytime I feel like I'm getting consumed by a problem. I remember one time I was just stewing over a work argument. I felt I'd been wronged, and I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. It felt like the most important thing in the world. That night, I tried the view from above. I closed my eyes and imagined floating up. I saw my apartment, then my neighborhood. I kept going, seeing my city, then the curve of the earth, a silent, beautiful marble hanging in the infinite dark. From that cosmic perspective, I tried to find my problem. Where was that argument? It was an invisible speck of conflict on a tiny speck of dust. It was nothing. The perspective shift was instant. My anger just dissolved into the vastness of it all. The problem didn't disappear, but its emotional weight was gone. It had been put in its proper place. As Marcus Aurelius noted, think about how soon we're all forgotten, the abyss of endless time that swallows it all. These two practices work together perfectly. Memento mori gives you the urgency to live a good life, while the view from above gives you the perspective to know what that actually means, freeing you from the tyranny of the trivial. Try this right now. Hold your hand up. Think about the fact that the atoms in your hand were forged in the heart of a dying star billions of years ago. Think about the unimaginable stretch of time that came before you and the eternity that will come after. Now, in that context, think about the last thing that made you anxious or angry. Does it still feel as heavy? That's the perspective Stoicism offers. The practice of virtue, the true north of Stoicism. This final principle is really the destination that all the others point toward. For the Stoics, the goal of life wasn't just to be happy or peaceful, though those are nice side effects. The ultimate goal was to live a life of virtue. Virtue was the only true good. Everything else, health, money, your reputation, was considered indifferent. Not that they were worthless, but they were secondary to your character. The Stoics pointed to four main virtues as a kind of compass for how to live. 1. Wisdom, seeing the world clearly and navigating it with reason. 2. Justice, treating others with fairness and respect. 3. Courage, the moral courage to do the right thing, even when it's hard. 4. Temperance, mastery over your own impulses, self-control and discipline. This focus on virtue is what turns Stoicism from a simple technique for feeling better into a profound guide for being better. The question changes from "What can I get out of life?" to "Who do I want to be in life?" I learned this firsthand when I received some very harsh criticism at work. It was delivered poorly, in public, and my first instinct was to lash out. I wanted to defend my ego, point out the other person's flaws, and just fight back. But then I forced myself to pause. I took a breath, and I asked myself, what would the virtuous response be here? So, I broke it down. Temperance meant I had to control that first flash of anger. Don't respond impulsively. Justice meant I had to consider their perspective, even if I thought they were wrong, and treat them with respect. Wisdom required me to look past the clumsy delivery and ask, is there a grain of truth in this that I can learn from? And courage meant I had to actually face the criticism, not just run from it. So, instead of a fiery comeback, I waited a day. After I'd cooled down, I went to the person and said something like, look, the way that feedback was delivered yesterday was tough to hear, but I've been thinking about what you said, and I think you have some points I can work on. Can we talk about it when you have a minute? That was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do at work. My ego was screaming at me, but the result was incredible. It completely diffused the situation and actually earned me respect. But most importantly, it gave me a deep sense of inner peace, because I had acted in line with my own values. I had been the person I wanted to be. My calm was no longer dependent on getting praise or threatened by criticism. It was anchored in the quality of my own actions. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Conclusion. So, there they are. The 5 mindsets that have been my map on this journey to inner peace. First, the dichotomy of control, teaching us to focus our energy where it actually matters. Second, premeditatio malorum, the practice that builds resilience while making us deeply grateful. Third, amor fati, the art of loving our fate and turning every obstacle into fuel. Fourth, memento mori and the view from above, the twin perspectives that give us urgency and clarity. And finally, the practice of virtue, the true north that guides everything and gives us an unshakable sense of self-worth. My life is still full of chaotic moments. The world is still unpredictable, but I'm no longer drowning. Stoicism didn't calm the seas around me. It taught me how to be an unshakable lighthouse in the middle of them. Inner peace isn't some destination you finally arrive at one day when all your problems are solved. It's a practice. It's the result of training your mind, day by day, to shift its focus from the messy, uncontrollable world outside to the orderly, controllable world of your own choices. The power to live a calm life isn't out there somewhere. It is, and always has been, right inside you. I want to leave you with one final question to carry with you. Which of these mindsets clicked with you the most? And what's one small way you can practice it this week? If this has been valuable for you, and you want to keep exploring practical philosophy for a better life, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you for joining me today. Stay calm and stay strong.